podcast. I'm Landon Thomas, joined by my co-host Shahnavaz, Makhani. Man, whoa, this All-Star break, man. I feel like we had an All-Star break.
Yeah,
There's so much going on.
That was a needed break, man. And then you come back and it's snowing and it's cold and it's
oh my
ridiculous.
Goodness. Yeah, so many things going on. So first of all, one of the big things going on was the All-Star festivities. And also, we're going to talk about post All-Star outlook on the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, so many things have happened in the last month. And when you look at the standings, the Mavericks are 8th seed. They're 30-26, 1 game behind 7th, 2 behind 6th, and their schedule is looking really good for them. Obviously, the big thing is what it's been, the whole season is injuries. So we'll just talk about the outlook on the Mavericks and how they look to close the season with everything going on around the franchise. So Shahnavaz, first of all, the All-Star game. I mean, what is your thoughts on the new format? I mean, we could talk about dunk contests and all that stuff, but we really need to talk about the All-Star game. The Mavericks had 2 All-Stars. Anthony Davis, obviously he has an injury, so he didn't play. He was replaced with Kyrie Irving, who honestly should have been there when you look at his stats and how the Mavericks are still above 500 after everything going on. So shout out to them making the All-Star game. But what is your thoughts on this new format?
It's dumb. It's stupid. Just every year, I feel like you and I have talked about the All-Star game, around this time, and we're always like, what can we do to change it? Because nobody watches, nobody, I had it on in the background, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I had to look at highlights to see Kyrie's off the backboard dunk that he had, but nobody really cares. You had the whole Kobe thing, a couple of years ago, scoring 24 points, which is a great tribute to Kobe. But then you do this round robin thing and LeBron backs out an hour before the game to not give somebody else a chance, which I thought was ridiculous and just a dumb move on his part as somebody who's been in the league for that long. Ultimately, I think this needs to go back to USA versus the world. I think now that you've got so many great international players, it would actually make it entertaining to watch. The problem is I think the NBA would be terrified to do that because I think the USA team would get absolutely murdered. I don't think it would be close. I think you put any of these, European stars, guys that were born outside the US, that can all claim to, Kyrie was born, could claim Australia and play for the international team. So, there's a lot to that. I don't think the NBA will ever do that, but they've got to fix it somehow. I mean, you look at the popularity of this 4 nations thing that the NHL is doing, where you've got Finland, Sweden, Canada, US, and now tomorrow night, Thursday night, you're going to have a rematch of Canada, US. There were 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of that game. The first matchup, not the championship. That was great TV. That was what you want as a fan. And I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I watched that entire game. That's what you want. This NBA All-Star thing, it's the players don't care. Why should we care if they're not going to put in their effort? Why should we watch it? It doesn't make a difference. I mean, it hasn't been good in a long time since kind of the old guard of the NBA actually, wanted to play against each other and thought the All-Star game meant something. So until they do something to change it, it's really just background noise at this point.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. It's weird to me that you have rising stars play on Sunday. That I understand breaking the format where you break down the teams, but why not add a few more spots where you could have, 4 teams of all-stars and they have those individual games, but having rising stars, rookies or sophomores, whatever you have it, play against all-stars, it kind of diminishes the game. You could say, oh, it was competitive, but you're still having rookies and sophomores play against all-stars. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense for an all-star game, especially when you want to see guys like Wemby play extended minutes in the all-star game. When you want to see Cade Cunningham play extended minutes in these type of games, that the game that they grew up watching and imagining themselves playing. And I like that you said that a few years ago, it really was the Kobe game. where everyone was wearing 2 and everyone was wearing 24, and that game was competitive. I don't know if it was for Kobe, but it predominantly was because they wanted to show homage to him. But also, I like that format, where every quarter was for charity, and the charity, the people associated to the charity, and some of the kids were in the arena cheering,
Yeah.
so it made them play much harder. And then also, then you had, like you said, the 24 in the fourth quarter. So every single quarter was competitive, and I want to see it stick to that, because after that it's been horrible. And to be honest, I do like East versus West. It's just naturally what I grew up watching, but at the same time, you have to tell these players to play harder, and you can't do that legally without incentivizing them. So it's either have to be just a dramatic winnings, like $1 million each to the winners, or I know people don't want to hear this, but home court advantage in the finals. I mean, you have to do something to make them play harder to get the East and West. I do like your USA versus World, but then I'm thinking down the line, like you said, the world is going to dominate the US. That's why the US is struggling so bad to find the next face of the league, when you have LeBron, Curry, and KD on, eventually going to retire here within the next few years, where you're not going to have, it's going to get even worse. Like, the world is still young.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't think anybody has that mentality where they want to be the face of the league, right? The responsibility that comes with it and the scrutiny that comes with it nowadays, with Twitter, with the media, the national media, social media, you name it. I mean, guys like Ian Edwards, who are coming out and saying, I don't want to be the face of the NBA, because every little aspect of your life, every little thing you do on and off the court is judged. And so I don't blame him. I don't blame anybody else for saying I don't want that responsibility.
Oh.
East West, like, yeah, you're right. It's what we grew up on. It's kind of classic. But these guys, they don't they don't play hard. Like, we saw them try to do the East West. It's just dunks and threes, and nobody plays defense. And the incentivization is a good point, because we said the same thing about the NBA Cup when it started, right? We were like, this seems like a dumb idea. But when you incentivize it, cash to the winner, a trophy, that kind of gets you to play a little bit harder. Maybe that's something, I don't know. Adam Silver's got to figure it out, because that weekend used to be something you would look forward to, right? You used to plan around, we got to watch the 3-point contest. We got to watch the dunk contest. Let's watch it was like a whole weekend of celebration and festivities. And now it's just kind of like, you just put it on because there's nothing else on. The last few years, I haven't even tuned into the dunk contest. I watched it this year, after I recorded it, because I heard it was good, and shout out to Matt McClung for winning that again. And to be honest, those dunks were great. And now you're getting these rumblings, on social media of Ja and Giannis and Aaron Gordon and all these guys saying, okay, we'll do it next year. You've got to bring those, even with the dunk contest. It's like you have G League players winning the dunk contest. Like, it's just that's not what it's supposed to be. It's, you want to have your stars. Clyde Drexler, Michael Jordan, guys, Vince Carter, superstar Hall of Fame players that have won the dunk contest before. Mm-hmm. Feels like we haven't seen anybody do it in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think also just elevating yourself into a different era of, nostalgia. Like, because I think where it only takes 1 year to bring it back. Like, obviously, Matt McClung, like you said, respect to him that he's even making it noteworthy at some degree. But like you said, it's been, no stars really putting themselves in there. Because once you have one star, it's gonna be a trickle down effect. Yep. Where you're gonna have other guys. If you do it, I do it. Like, you saw Giannis, and you saw all these other guys talk about 1v1. Hey, if they do, Ant Edwards, Kyrie Irving, Giannis, all these guys saying, hey, bring it back. Let's do the 1v1. It needs to be like that with the dunk contest. So, like, if Ant Edwards or, like you said, Ja Morant, Zion, or even Aaron Gordon, like you said, and Zach LaVine do a little homage to their battle. If those type of players played in it, everyone's going to tune in to watch it. I know the NBA posted their views on Saturday night, whatever, but nobody's going to remember it. Not even 5 years. No one's going to remember it 2 years from now. Respect to Matt McClung, but like, he's not going to go down when you see the classic NBA dunk contest. You might get 2-second clips in the highlight, but when you really dissecting dunk contest, it doesn't have the same branding as the legends that have done it, because we always see Michael Jordan's, we even see Spud Webb, and we see Vince Carter all the time. That's what I'm saying. That raises you up. Even though they had the game, they were stars already. But like Spud Webb, that raised him up. And, in Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon, that raised them up because you see their clips all the time. And I think you would see that with Ja Morant. You would see that even Wemby. There's some stuff that Wemby can do. I want to see something that we haven't seen, or if we have seen it, I want to see it with some athleticism with big names.
I want to see it come from an actual all-star. Like, the dunk contest shouldn't be random folks that aren't in the all-star game. Like, all-stars who are participating in the actual game should be the ones in the dunk contest, in the three-point contest, in the skill. That's what all-star weekend's about. You can't just pick half the NBA to come and participate in all these activities, because it loses its meaning. Like, it doesn't make any sense anymore. The last dunk contest I remembered, to your point, is Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. Before that was what, like Dwight Howard, Blake Griffin. Like, those were all early 2010s. I couldn't remember anything the past 10 years, probably. I mean, dating back to that Aaron Gordon, Zach LaVine one, I think that was the last one that I think was significant. And then you've got dumb dunks like Jaylen Brown jumping over a 5'8" rapper. It's like, okay, great. Like, there's nothing special about any of these guys that are doing it. So shout out to Mac McClung, but the NBA's got to figure this out, because it's turning into and I'm a huge baseball fan, but now it's come to a point where baseball All-Star game is better than the NBA's, which if you would have told David Stern would have fixed it in a heartbeat. So Adam Silver's got to do something to figure this out, because the players don't care. The fans are losing interest. And it's just, at this point, just give everyone a vacation. Just say, look, it's a week break in the season. Everyone get rest, get healthy, and we'll come back.
Yeah, it really is. And and that's why I think All-Star Weekend is it's really become an event or a weekend for partners and the NBA partners and all the branding. I mean, how many commercials can you do? I mean, my goodness.
I know. And everything Kevin Hart getting airtime like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, he's not even funny, to be honest. But it's come to a point where guys have to have pride themselves. And I think it's I know every time you turn on TV, it's the older version versus the older generation versus the young generation. Like, y'all are the reason. No, y'all are the reason. But when you really look at it, who cares? Just the players who make it. Y'all be the leaders. Y'all be the ones who start to bring back All-Star Weekend. And it really does come down to the players. Like you just said, like, stars can say, hey, you know what? Let's bring this back. And that's what it brings down. That's what it boils down to, is we need leaders to say, I'm going to put my name in it.
Yeah.
And that's when you see all-stars doing that, other all-stars are going to say, okay, now it's cool for me to do it. Because I'm going to be honest, Matt McClung did his thing, but no all-star is going to say, I want to go up against Matt McClung. And that's what I'm trying to say. If you have Ja Morant in it, you might get Anthony Edwards say, okay, I'm going to go against Ja Morant. Like those are the type of players that we want to see and the casual viewers want to see, because the casual viewers are not going to know Mac McClung. They might know him from high school with some highlight tapes, but like most casual viewers, you got to treat it like the Super Bowl, where you want casual people to watch it even if they're not a fan of the game. That's really what you want people to do, and I think you can do it if you bring stars into it.
And that's what the NBA All-Star Weekend had going for it more than any of the other major sports in the US.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Pro Bowl has been nothing for
Oh,
decades to the point where they just stopped doing it. Now they just do that skills contest, right? Which still nobody watches. Hockey, the NHL doing this Four Nations thing is a really, really cool idea, and especially for
innovative.
hockey. It's very innovative, especially for hockey fans when you've got a huge international base and a lot of international players within the NHL to do this with Four Nations and the rivalry of, US and Canada. I mean, that's electric. And baseball, look, baseball's a classic. The All-Star game's been the same way. The only thing that changed over the years was home field advantage in the World Series. Basketball used to be the one that everyone got ready for. Everyone was like,
Yeah.
Saturday night 3-point contest, dunk contest, and then let's watch the game. That's what it used to be. It used to be a whole weekend, right? It's the only sport that has a whole weekend of all-star festivities, and now it's fallen by the wayside to just be like, okay, I watched hockey over basketball, Landon, on Saturday night. That's how crazy it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just to end on this, there has to be some sort of pride when, because in this new era in the AAU circuit, all the top stars are buddies.
Yeah.
Like you see it when everyone's jumping teams. Like everybody is buddied up. When, and I'm not gonna say back in the day, like even a decade ago or a couple decades, even, people did not like their opposing players. Like people went at it, they competed. But now it's more of a skill based, let me show my craft on the court instead of, I want to go at this dude and he's not beating me. He's not better
Yeah.
than me. I'm better than him. And I'm going to show him up on a national stage at the All-Star game.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's completely gone, and that is the AAU culture. We've seen it for years in the NBA, and that's also what's driven down viewership too, right? I mean, all these players jumping teams to play with their friends and constantly asking out and being traded, and it's just the whole product of the NBA. We've heard it for years. It's just they've been struggling to kind of keep things afloat.
Yeah, and that's why there are no rivalries, and
Yeah,
there
not really, not anymore.
no, because people used to hate playing against another player, and you see it all the time with retired players. They say, I hated that guy. I like him now, but I hated playing against him. And and you saw more scuffles, and that's what it really boils down to is it's a buddy type NBA now. It's a brotherhood. It really is. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also, you don't see as much competition or competitiveness amongst the players. All right, Shahnavaz. So the Mavericks, like I stated, the Mavericks are 8th seed right now. They're 30-26. They play on Friday to get back, so they get a good break there. A lot of injuries still. We still don't know if AD, the situation there is a cloud there. And obviously Gafford, he's going to be extended out more time. And then Lively's still out. Powell, who's probably going to come back first out of all the bigs, but he's still out. So, what's your outlook on this the rest of the season? I mean, you got 2 All-Stars, one's hurt. Kyrie Irving's doing his thing leading the team. But when you look at the rest of the season, what has to take place and what do you see as the outlook for this team?
Yeah, I mean, what has to take place is Dallas finally has to win the games that they, against lesser opponents. We've seen time and time again this year, even through the injuries, that they've struggled to put away opponents. We saw it against Philadelphia before the All-Star break, a game that Dallas should have had and should have won and didn't. We saw it against the Hornets, back in January, a game that Dallas should have won and didn't, especially down the stretch. I mean, their schedule, I think they have the 10th easiest schedule in the NBA going forward, but the beginning of it's not, the stretch during March is going to be really tough. I mean, they play the Bucks twice in 1 week, the Grizzlies, the Suns, the Rockets. We all know how Mavericks struggle against the Pacers. And then, after the middle of March, that last stretch going into April is when the Mavericks play pretty much, poor teams in the Eastern Conference. And so they've got to be able to put away opponents that they should be. I mean, it's a tall order asking them to beat a team like Milwaukee and Memphis without Daniel Gafford or Anthony Davis or even Dwight Powell, because you're talking about going up against Giannis and Jaren Jackson Jr. But that Lakers game next week, everyone's going to obviously be talking about the Luka Doncic aspect of it. But the Lakers are a team that Dallas can exploit, especially inside. Dallas loves to get the ball in the paint. You can put PJ at the 5. They've got to exploit their matchups to be able to win, because that's really their only option at this point. I mean, this team has been decimated by injuries. But Landon, you've got to give them credit, man. To go 4-2 after that trade, when morale is everyone's probably confused, everyone's probably figuring out what's going on, and to have a leader like Kyrie Irving to kind of right the ship a little bit, and huge wins against Boston, against Houston. We talked about it, kind of the glimpse of what Anthony Davis can bring to this team. But even after that, getting those wins against the Warriors, getting the win against the Heat, when you only had 10 players suiting up for that, and none of them were regular rotation players, and you still beat Miami. Huge wins to put yourself in a position to only be a game out of a playoff spot. Dallas just has to kind of keep their head above water until, fingers crossed that Anthony Davis is back, because it doesn't sound like Daniel Gafford's going to be back anytime soon, to your point. Really, Dwight Powell is going to be your only big on the roster. Dallas did sign Moses Brown to a 10-day contract, so we'll see what that looks like. But they've played well recently going small with Kessler Edwards at the 5. Yeah. PJ, has missed some time, but they've got some pieces they can tinker with. And I think when you are playing small like that, it gives more room for Kyrie Irving to operate in the paint. It gets Klay Thompson open. Max Christie has been a revelation since coming over from the Lakers. So let me not forget Dante Exum. I had his stats pulled up, but Dante Exum's last 5 games, 13 points, and 4.5 assists, shooting 64% from the field and 54% from 3. I mean, he's having a phenomenal stretch since he came back from injury. And so that just gives you another piece that you can use. And Jason Kidd has shown he knows how to manipulate these lineups, and especially against different opponents. So I think that, injuries are part of the game. It's unfortunate, but Dallas just they've got to win the games that they're supposed to win at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be, and I'm glad you pointed out Moses Brown. Obviously, it's a 10-day. They need just the size. All their bigs are out. But I think that is also a sign that they're trying to make a run here. Like, because they're not signing, obviously salary cap, they're kind of, their backs are kind of against the wall.
Yeah.
But it just shows that, hey, we are still trying to go for it instead of just, this is our guys and whatever happens. Like, they're not tanking. They are going to try to make a run. They're only a game back of 7. They're only 2 games back of 6. And like you said, they just have to get through this tough stretch. And then the rest of the season, they should be good. And they can make a run going into playoffs, which is what you want. And that also leads me to my next point is, I'm glad you just said Dante Exum, because I always say he's the second X factor on this team behind PJ Washington. So if he's coming back and you have Exum, and you really can run PJ at the 5 until they get at least one big back, because like you said, Kessler is doing really good, and Omax has been really good as well. He's competing. Well. But you can run PJ and run a small 5-out stretch where it might be pretty good for the Mavericks until like you run into those teams where you need a big. But at the same time, I like PJ and Dante, really giving this team a spark. And then Kyrie's not going to go away. Like, he's going to fight until he can't fight this season. And I think they're going to be really good because Max Christie. And that's what the beauty of this season is. And, the blessing in disguise with the injuries, because Max Christie has played like 40 minutes and like he's really showing his value on both ends. Like, the Lakers got Luka Doncic, top 3 player in the league. And Lakers fans, every time I post Max Christie, they're so excited that he's blossoming into the player that they wanted him to be in the Lakers. And he couldn't do that, not because of his game, because JJ did put him on the floor. It's because he was playing behind LeBron. He was playing behind Austin Reeves. He was playing behind Anthony Davis. He didn't have the ball in his hands. He was like a 3-and-D. And now he comes to the Dallas and he's getting the ball in his hands in clutch situations. And that is, you're seeing a guy, and I'm not going to overhype it, but you're seeing a guy who could be really, really, really good in this league. And he's just turned 22, and he has a bright future ahead of him, and he could be a perfect replacement for Klay Thompson in a few years in the starting lineup. But then when you think about it, he's probably going to be too good where you have to start him regardless the next season.
It's going to be a really, really interesting conversation over the summer, because if he keeps playing the way he's playing now, I mean, you're going to have to talk to Klay about coming off the bench, because unless you make a move, you know, I know we don't get into rumors, but unless you make another move where you're missing, you know, you're sending out another guy in your starting lineup, and you can put Klay at the 3 and Christie at the 2, you know, you're internally the Mavericks are going to have really, really hard discussions about that, because the way Max Christie's been playing, he's earned every minute that he's played. Defensively, you talked about the clutch shots that he's hit. He's been awesome. And I think you see the trust from Kyrie Irving. I think you obviously see the trust from, you know, you saw the trust from Anthony Davis, but even from Jason Kidd, you know, you're seeing the trust to keep him out there. I mean, we've talked about it. It seems like every pod we talk about, you know, players taking advantage of their opportunities. And Max Christie came in and did that right away with the situation. And now with the injuries, he's picked up the slack. He's having to play a lot of minutes, you know, coming into a new team. That's really difficult, you know, so he's definitely earned it. And I forgot to mention, Landon, let's not forget Caleb Martin's coming back, hopefully, within the next week or two. So now if you're the Mavericks, you've got a bundle of ball handlers. You've got hopefully people as you
big
get
guards,
healthy,
big wings,
big guards, big wings, but hopefully, you know, the depth piece of it is Kyrie doesn't have to play 40 minutes a night. You know, he's had to this last stretch after the trade deadline because of the injuries, you know, because you were missing guys and because other players like Jaden Hardy just have not seized that opportunity where you can rely on them, you know. I think now with Exum, you know, kind of getting back into gear, Dinwiddie playing pretty well over the last couple of weeks, and you bring in Caleb Martin, you've got Max Christie, now you've got a
Najee.
Najee, you've got 5 solid guys that can bring the ball up. You can now, you know, play Kyrie against some of these poor teams, you know, against the Brooklyns, against the Charlottes. He doesn't have to play 40 minutes a night. He can play 30. Give him a night off. Let him, I mean, you know, you're going to have to manage it because you're going to need a full strength Kyrie Irving come playoff time.
Yeah, and also let's not forget that, you know, the games, because you said 4-2, those 2 games, they lost by 2 points to the Sixers, and they lost by 1 point to the Kings in overtime. Yeah. Like, this team could be really 6-0 in their last 6 games. Obviously, you go by results; they are 4-2. But you know what you see from them, they're scrappy, and they
play hard. They play extremely hard.
And that leads to what you just said. I forgot about Caleb Martin. Like, he's added to this mix, and he's going to play hard. He's going to be very scrappy, and it just boils down to, obviously, it was a bad trade because, you know, this is Luka Doncic, but you're starting to see why they did it. Don't get me wrong, it's a bad trade, but you're starting to see why, because they're trying to go all in on defense, and they're trying to get guys who know how to move the ball well, and they're trying to get out of that where the ball's not in Luka's hands the whole game. And you see it because even Kyrie's on the team, but he's not the type. We talked about this since he's been here. He's not the type of guy who's going to have the ball in his hands the whole game.
Right.
That's why you're seeing Max Christie shine with Kyrie. Not only because Kyrie's out, but he's played with Kyrie and he's still shining. That's because that's just a benefit of playing with Kyrie. And Anthony Davis, I know he only played 3 quarters, but he was dominating when he had that stretch of just brilliance. But he wasn't asking for the ball. He was moving the ball as well. And I see the vision when the whole team is healthy, but it looks really, really bad because Anthony Davis got hurt. But I see the vision.
Yeah, and I think the injury doesn't help. The optics of it obviously don't help in terms of what's been said by certain people in the front office. You know, I think just the shock of it, right? Like I don't think it's worn off. You know, I know for me it's kind of like a, you know, I'm very much the type of person of, you know, where you know, you and I talked about this, where it's kind of like, okay, I rationalize it, I deal with it, I gather as much information as I can, and you know what? It's life. Life moves on. let's go. Like, I'm not going to sit and revel in the past. And there's so many people doing that, and that's fine, to each their own. But you have to look at if this is what it's going to be, do it the right way. In terms of, if your goal was as GM to go out and get a defensive player, if that's what you're going to do, there's really not anybody better than Anthony Davis, right? We've talked about his prowess on the defensive end. We saw it against Şengün, against the Rockets. The unfortunate part is that he got hurt. And I think that just adds, fuel to the fire. But look, if it's any consolation, I don't know if there was anything to it or not, but Kyrie Irving did do a really fantastic interview with Malika Andrews on ESPN, which how much I hate watching ESPN clips and stuff, but it was all over Twitter. But man, you've got to give credit to him as a leader. With the word, his word choice, what he spoke about, the relationship he still has with Luka Doncic, but also understanding this is a business, this is the NBA. He's been through it, and then also saying, look, I know that we're getting healthy, and I don't know if maybe I'm just nitpicking words here, but he did say we are getting healthy. So there may be something that, we haven't heard anything on Anthony Davis yet. So who knows, right? But fingers crossed that he's not out the rest of the season. Fingers crossed that he's back in a couple of weeks. We've seen this team win without him. We've seen this team, to your point, be scrappy, be resilient. They know how to put things together. And a lot of, to your point, they only lost 2 games by what, total of 2 points or 3 points. So it's not like they were getting blown out. It's not like these were outside of that Cleveland game, which I think that was an anomaly because of the shock factor of what had happened, the night before. So you take into account the last 6 games, the last week of basketball, this team was playing really, really well. Now you've gotten your guys some rest. You've gotten, you're allowing people to get, regain some health, time to implement some more game plans. And now you come into this stretch run. We saw what Dallas did last year after the trade deadline, and the run that they went on to make the postseason. They very well could do the same thing this year.
Yeah, and I think, the time that Luka was out did give other guys, the time to find their identity, that has kind of led into this time where now I can do more. And that's not a knock on Luka. That's really a compliment to his game, because, he helps make other guys' job easier. But when he's not there, it gives a chance for other guys to shine on a consistent basis, instead of saying, hey, this next 5 games, I really got to step up, and then Luka will be back and I can go back to my role. No, it's, hey, now I have an opportunity to show my game. And that's what you're seeing with guys like Najee. You're seeing with guys like Exum, Dinwiddie, because now they know that, okay, Luka is not coming back. So this is the roster. So this is my role now. So now I got to show what I can do. And that's why I love watching Max Christie, his game, because not only on the court, he plays like a 30-year-old. Like, he makes veteran moves. And off the court, he talks very mature. He is very well spoken. He's very mature for his age, and he is very locked in on his job. And he says we. I don't think people notice that. He says we a lot. For as a guy who just got traded to the Mavericks in a shell-shock trade, but he's saying we as a team. Like, he is showing leadership at a young age. I see Lakers fans calling him, and that's why I say I'm not going to overhype him, but I see Lakers fans giving him the potential of a young Kobe, with just his demeanor, his body type, and his ability to play defense, and ability to show his mid-range on scoring opportunities. And that's a bright future for him. Obviously, that's a very high bar. That's why they say young Kobe. But just the things that he can do, I would push him to the moon.
And I love the confidence. I mean, we've talked about it with other Mavs players, plenty of times, about Josh Green, and now with Jaden Hardy, of just the mental mistakes that they make, right? Like the lack of confidence in shooting the ball when they get it. Jaden Hardy with his inconsistency passing and ball handling. it feels like Max Christie has confidence through the roof. When he's willing to take the shot, he's willing to knock it down. He's willing to take the big shot. He did it against Houston. You know, you love seeing that out of a kid. And I think people don't realize, because of the magnitude of the trade that happened, which, look, again, you said it and I'll repeat it. We're not sitting here saying we agree with the trade. We wouldn't have done it. You don't trade a top 3 player in the NBA, but it is what it is. It happened. You're a fan of the team. You keep watching the Mavs. People forget Max Christie was a consensus top 20 player in high school. This guy was a McDonald's All-American. He was a number 1 player in Illinois. A top recruit at Michigan State. I think the knock on him, like with a lot of other college players, he spent 4 years in college, or 3 years in college. And so, you see a lot of these one-and-done players. He stayed, he refined his game, he got better and better, and then you learn from guys like LeBron, you learn from Anthony Davis, you learn from a JJ Redick while you're with the Lakers. So he's had a good foundation, and now he's getting to play as a second or third option on most nights, with a team that's fighting for a playoff shot. And so I think he's got all the confidence in the world, and I think as well the team has confidence in him, from Jason Kidd all the way down to to the players on the court with him.
Yeah, and another guy is Kessler Edwards. He's only 24. Like, you seriously need to think about making him a everyday player on your roster for next season, because you're getting extreme value on a 2-way contract, and you're watching him really grow and really shine. Obviously, he has already played in the league. I mean, he's not someone just getting his first time, his opportunity, but from what he's doing, and he said he hasn't played center since like high school. So like, and that was just because he was so tall. But you're seeing you're seeing the beauty of his versatility, and he could really learn from a guy like PJ Washington. So I want to see him keep playing, down the stretch. Him and Omax have done great. Until the bigs come back, I would like to see both of them play every game, because not only is this helping the team now, it's helping the team in the future. So I think Edwards needs to definitely stay around.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to say I was criticizing Kessler Edwards every time he stepped on the court. I mean, I was not impressed. I really liked him when he was in Sacramento. I thought he had a lot of potential, and then I forgot that he got moved to Brooklyn and played with Kyrie Irving. When they were both with the Nets. He just kind of bounced around G leagues. But man, the last 2 week stretch of basketball, he's really, really played well. I mean, it doesn't show up in the box score, but if you just watch the games, you can see the defensive intensity. You can see the switchability because of his length and athleticism. He's able to switch on to defenders. I think the Mavericks have played a lot more switch defense the last couple of weeks, because they have the ability to now, right? You've got 5 defenders on the court, and Kyrie's going to be the weakest defender there, but he's no scrub on his own. He's been in this league long enough where he knows, how to force people to the baseline. He knows how to pickpocket and get steals, and, when to let people go by him because of the rim protection. So, I think having Kessler Edwards and his ability to switch and his length really causes a problem for some of these teams. And you've got to give him props, because he's played extremely well the last few weeks. I've been really, really happy with him.
Yeah, that's why I want to see him continue to play, even when Powell comes back. If you go small ball with PJ at the 5, you can throw Edwards at the backup 5. So you obviously seen him; he can play. You can have Powell as an emergency or foul trouble, because I really want to see them continue to play him. So Shahnavaz, you did mention it. Moses Brown, he did sign the 10-day. He's expected to be announced soon with the 10-day. What do you expect to see from him, or is you just think he just comes in 10 days and he's out?
Yeah, I think it's just a depth thing. I think you didn't really get, well, I didn't say you got nothing from Kyler Kelly, so really not a reason to try that experiment again. And Moses Brown, he's been in the building before. He was one of Nico Harrison's first acquisitions when he first joined as GM, so there's a familiarity there. I really truly think it's a depth piece. I also hold a little bit more optimism. The fact that it's only a 10-day contract, I don't know the full ramifications if the Mavs could have signed somebody for the rest of the season, but I feel like a 10-day contract, maybe they feel a little bit more confident in, Dwight coming back a little bit earlier than they thought, and maybe AD coming back earlier than they thought. I don't know. That's just conjecture, but Moses Brown gives you a big body you can bring in off the bench in case, small ball doesn't work, or if Dwight Powell gets in foul trouble if he's back from injury. But just another piece really that you can kind of throw at defenses, because especially when you play teams like Milwaukee and you've got to go up against Giannis, you need somebody down low who can kind of take the brunt of that. And I think you'll see him play, maybe not significant, but you'll see him play minutes against teams like the Bucks for sure.
Yeah, I don't really put too much stock in it. I mean, it's good that they have him just in case that, the team runs into foul trouble, or you could replace the Kelly minutes, stuff like that. But, when you have Powell and PJ, the eventual returns of them, you probably won't even see them on the court, especially with Edwards and Omax being able to play a big that's small. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that, but just another body until this team gets healthy. And I do want to just finish with the final word. Kyrie Irving, you alluded to it, and you mentioned, his interview, but just what I've seen from him is A1. It obviously, the rap that he got, and it's funny because ESPN was the ones that were doing the most of it.
Yeah.
But he's really shown that he's a big time leader, because obviously you trade Luka and people don't realize that Kyrie has been the leader since he got here. And that's even with Luka on the team. And people don't notice that until Luka's gone, because they think, Luka and Kyrie were the leaders. And that is true, but they're different type of leaders. Luka was a leader on the court by example, and then Kyrie was a leader on the court and off the court verbally. Obviously Luka kept the mood light. He made sure everyone wasn't panicking in stressful situations and just enjoying the game. That's one thing I really miss about Luka, is just him enjoying the game, the game that he loves. But Kyrie always had everyone staying calm within the storm. And that's what he's doing right now. And that's why you're seeing them win games, because they could really bottom out for a situation like that, especially not just trade, but injuries. They could really bottom out, but he's really put this team together and really leading by example on the court and off the court. And I think that's something that should be highlighted amongst national media and local media, because I try to show stuff that he does off the court, but I think everyone should. I think you should always show the good things, not just point out the bad things because it gives clicks and it gets engagement, but also the good things that people don't see on commercials or ads or PR statements. That's credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much else to say. I mean, I think you want to talk about the turnaround of a player that was one of the most scrutinized players in the NBA, and
yeah,
it just goes to show you don't judge a book by its cover. I mean, there's more to people than what meets the eye, and I think you're truly seeing that with Kyrie Irving. When you find a home and you find a place where you're at peace and you're comfortable, your family's comfortable, you have a sense of community. Look at what it can do for you.
Yeah. And we'll end it on that. So we want to thank everyone. Hope y'all are enjoying the All-Star break. The Mavericks do play soon, so things are going to ramp up, and we'll see how they do. I mean, there's a lot of things going for them, because I feel like we can mention Luka a little bit because it is one of the biggest trades in NBA history, but there's a lot to discuss about this team. And that's what we're doing on this podcast. But you can't talk about Luka as much as people do now, because they're doing more than when he was on the team. I mean, you gotta show praise to the guys on the team as well. Obviously, everyone's right. That's y'all's right. If you want to stop watching the Mavericks, or you want to stop, you know, encouraging the players or etc., you have all your right to do that. No one should tell you how to be a fan. But at the other end of it, other people have rights to stay and cheer for the team. Because they have right to cheer these players on too, because they're playing just as hard for this team to get victories. So I just wanted to end it on that.
you can be a Luka fan, you can be critical of the front office, but you can still be a Mavs fan. They're all mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
You know, you can all three can be true.
Yeah, because it's funny because, you know, when you look at the Cowboys, for example, even myself, like that front office,
It's a joke.
I can't even stand the Cowboys front office, but I love the Cowboys. And then sometimes you got to look at it like that. With the Mavericks, if you can't stand the front office, like you said, it's okay. But you know, if you love the Mavericks, that's okay too.
Yeah. To each their own.
Yep. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. We appreciate y'all always tuning in. We're getting a lot of engagement lately, and the numbers are growing. So we appreciate y'all. We just passed 8,000 followers. So, and that's all a credit to y'all listening to the podcast, watching post game interviews, highlights from the games, anything that we post. We
Party at Landon's house when we hit 10.
There you go. We're gonna have streamers. Yeah, we're gonna be like a Kai Sanat stream.
There we
when
go.
we hit 10,000, because we just started doing this a year ago, and it's been growing since, and that's incredible. And the credit is to all of you. So we appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in to the Mavs Fans for Life podcast. Goodbye, everyone.